of talking with a very distinguished group of leaders who are thinking with us about what is the role of infrastructure in the philanthropic ecosystem. If you had to say what was the most critical element for strengthening the infrastructure for philanthropy in the work that you do, visibility and the outcomes of our work actually got a majority of votes. That's very interesting. 31% of you think that it's the legal or the fiscal environment in which you work, and we're going to talk quite a bit about that. And a smaller number are thinking at the moment about the centrality or the priority of sharing high-quality data. We may try to shift you a little bit on that one by the end of the session.
In terms of legal and fiscal issues, I think one way to look at this is, for some of you that are working internationally at least, what's important for your members is probably global philanthropy, so the cross-border. Whether or not these donors can give out of their countries, and there are a lot of restrictions around that in terms of not getting tax incentives or having to get permission. Some countries in Southeast Asia that have to get prior permission before they can even make a donation abroad. But more often than not, the challenge is on the inflow side, which is the recipients. So whereas maybe donors have difficulty giving, the greater difficulty are in most countries receiving. We have a civil servant team now that's still part of the Interior Ministry, which is not ideal, but certainly much better. And they service NGOs, and we can now go to the governorship and establish our NGOs there. And we do not need prior permission, but we do need to still give prior notification. So, this is certainly an improvement. What isn't an improvement is that we still live in a country where Twitter and other forms of social media are under threat. And I think most of you probably already know this, but the International Center for Not-for-Profit Law is one of the major international organizations in terms of providing expertise to countries in which legal issues are a challenge and they're trying to work on them. But also, we have the biggest database of civil society legal data. Online interaction is not only protected under our freedoms of opinion and expression, but they're also protected under assembly and association. So we really do have to do some now more maybe modern day thinking and advocating and go back to the drawing board in a lot of ways with regards to what it means to actually have an association law that is enabling, because it requires so many other factors to be in place. So in that sense, it's a much more holistic approach that we need. And there have been several applications to the courts in Turkey, and they've accepted the fact that this ban is actually not constitutional and that it goes against the European Court of the European Rights Conventions and so forth. And we'll have to see how things unfold. But I think one of the major issues that I think a lot of countries in the Arab region, but not only the Arab region, Turkey and other countries where we're seeing a lot more of this restricted space, it creates a rather chilling effect, all of this. When you're trying to engage with a family about proactive, social justice-oriented philanthropy, making grants, engaging and supporting civil society, even though they feel in their values very keen to support this, they feel very kind of nervous about engaging with a sector that the government and even that sometimes the media presents to be maybe a possible threat or, in some cases, unruly and so forth. So to really look at legal and fiscal issues much more beyond the technicalities and look at it and also in terms of placing philanthropy in a space that's empowering, enabling, incentivizing, and bringing more people in.
So I think data is needed to portray the sector. I think it's an essential component of accountability, and I think it's one of the means to achieve transparency. So I have managed to put the 3 keywords in the same sentence. If you don't collect data or there is nobody else doing it around you, how do you advocate for the sector? When I try to represent the sector, people will ask me, how many foundations are there in your country? What do they do? Or what do they achieve? And how can I advocate for the sector if I cannot answer those questions? Well, I have three principal actors in the data provision, the access to data, and the data dissemination. In the case for Spain, these three main actors are foundations, supervising authorities, and us, the Spanish Association of Foundations. Foundations in our country are a key resource for data. They are obliged by law to every year file in with the supervising authority an annual report together with their annual accounts. From there, we can portray the sector and know, how many actors we have, in which activity area they work, who are the beneficiaries, at least to have a rough idea about the groups, and also what kind of activities do foundations develop. But we can also learn about another thing, and is what is the economic weight of the sector. In Spain, we've learned that the foundation sector accounts for 1% of the GDP. Well, this is a figure that it opens up some eyes when we go to advocate for the sector. We can say we represent 1% of the GDP.
So here you have a situation, like Rosa was talking about, where the documents that foundations are required to file with the authorities are public information. And they are available to searchable databases, but still there's a transparency problem in American philanthropy. If you wanted to search through the tax documents of all the foundations in the US to find information, you'd be dealing with 3,880,000 pages of text material, none of which is in digital form. Okay, it's in PDF documents. So these are text documents from which you have to extract the information. And we were kind of shocked when we learned that 93% of foundations in the United States do not have websites. So these are some of the contradictions about transparency, that a conducive legal and fiscal environment does not guarantee transparency. But the way we're able to access information online will force them to become more transparent. Particularly the movement towards open data. In the US, as in many countries, there's a lot of pressure for more and more government information to be online as open machine-readable data. And in the US, within the next 5 years, all the tax returns of American foundations will be made available by the government as machine-readable open data. So you'll go from a situation where people know very little about foundations to a situation where it will be possible to pull all sorts of information and do calculations on it and come up with all sorts of information, good and bad, about the sector. The number one question that new philanthropists have is, how can I know what the other foundations know? And that's a very difficult question to answer. This is a question that a lot of, in the US, that a lot of the Silicon Valley philanthropists are asking. They have billions of dollars, they're young, they want to do something important. They don't necessarily want to reinvent the wheel. So they ask a very good question. Well, how can I know what all of you know? And we don't have a very good answer for them because we don't have very good data sharing mechanisms.
Okay, I would like to adapt in something that Phyllis has mentioned, and is the global taxonomy on the availability of data. Because I feel this is something that we are missing, at least in membership organizations like ours. I have 1,000 members, and the majority of the cases when a member comes and say, oh, I want to work with somebody that is doing such and such, or who has this, I have to do it in a craft way. I have to go around and ask, and this is making us lose our biggest potential and our biggest assets, which is what our members are doing. So I put this forward because I think this is what it will make associations like ours to move one step further in what we are doing to help philanthropy or foundations to evolve. And the promotion of sharing data, well, I have experienced that every time that we ask for data to our members, because an organization that I trust, comes and asks me, can I get data from Spanish foundations? Well, it is a matter of trust. My members feel that if I send that survey, it's because I trust the organization that is collecting it. and they are happy to provide information for the bigger picture. So in many cases, they feel that as an opportunity that I'm giving them to participate in an exercise that is broader than what I'm offering them. So from that sense, I mean, I feel we can play a role in there.